Hello everyone, Daniel from punkchristian.com. Today is Cinco de Mayo 2021. We're getting close, we're almost halfway through this year. So, some of you may think it's Mexican Independence Day. No, it's not that. So we'll get into it today. I want to focus on one of my favorite topics, cultural appropriation. I was going to talk about it on St. Patrick's Day, but I wanted to tie it in on today with Cinco de Mayo because I felt it was a little more appropriate, and I'll discuss that a little later. I feel cultural appropriation is very appropriate, especially with the way Americans have turned Jesus into this white Republican, gun-toting Republican, where Jesus was a brown pacifist. So, yeah. All right, so cultural appropriation is very timely this week with Justin Bieber. If he has been in the news with he's had dreadlocks and he's getting uh, grief for it because they're saying that he is assuming some African American elements, and they're saying he's taking on, some he's appropriating African American culture. Um, do you think that's a little unfair? Let's talk about what cultural appropriation is if you do not know. It's adopting elements of one culture and assuming one's cultural identity. Can be controversial, when it talks about minority groups. That was the cliff notes from Wikipedia. It's especially controversial when you don't appreciate it. Now, Justin Bieber, make no mistake, he is kind of a tool. In his case, I do think that, as, much, he's Justin Bieber. I think, you know, I think there's some heart there, and I think he's doing it for some good reasons, and I think he's appreciating why he's doing it. So while he does deserve the flack, and I do think some of the backlash is rightful, I do let's not mistake it. I do think he does appreciate the African American elements of what he's doing it. So uh, let's move on. So one of the things I really dislike about American culture is how we're one of the only cultures where you can say, "Hey, I'm German. Hey, I'm Swedish. Hey, I'm this. Hey, I'm that." And we're really not. Most of us are American to the core. And I used to say, "Hey, I'm German. Hey, I'm Canadian," and like I'm not like I, don't speak a word of German. Um, and my fiance, her mom says, "Hey, we're Swedish," and it's like, okay, where's your Swedish relatives? Oh, I don't know. Like we can't, account for them, and it's like, okay, so what are your Swedish traditions? Oh, like we don't have any, we don't know. Oh, okay, so like then you talk to someone from Sweden and you say, "Hey, I'm Swedish," and then it's like, "Oh, hey, I'm Swedish," and they try to talk Swedish to you. It's like, so you're not Swedish. And they look at you and like there's this disconnect with like you're saying this and like you really don't mean it. And I'm a firm believer in saying what you mean. And Americans, we have been known for really this dissonance with what we're doing. And we do it with Jesus, with our it real cultural appropriation. We're doing it with Cinco de Mayo. This is why I want to cover it. We associate Cinco de Mayo with Mexican Independence Day, but let me focus on this. To me, I was one of the people that would say, "Hey, I'm German." I would rationalize it by saying, I'm eligible for the German Olympic team, because that would be for you're eligible for the Olympic team if you're two generations removed. My grandparents were born in Germany, or great grandparents were born in Germany. I'm not sure if my grandpa was, but there's a chance he was. Um, but I never knew him, and so I never, did that. My mom may have spoken some German. She was raised by her grandparents. and she ate German food, but I never grew up with any German traditions. And so I feel, while I always thought of myself as German, it was more of this American German. And so when I met someone from Germany, I really stopped to think, like, I stopped thinking of myself as German, because it's like, no, wait, I'm an American. And it really got me to think, like, why don't I think of myself as an American? And it started to make me appreciate that. And it also made me realize that I was kind of disrespecting, the other culture by appropriating it with, by saying it, just because of how out of touch I was with it. Like, I was displaying the German flag, but what was I displaying? I wasn't displaying the values. All I was displaying was an appreciation for my mom. And so I found myself taking that down, and now, I'm learning. So uh, now, moving on, let's talk. St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day really bugs me because there were Irish slaves. Now, I didn't cover it in particular because as I was doing research on that, a lot of the research is rooted in racism. A lot of the articles that are out there were put out by a lot of these white supremacist groups, and that was to bury the minority, the African American stuff, and they wanted to really show, and their purpose of that was to, show that white people suffered, as much as African Americans, and it was to, you know, really bury the suffering of African Americans. So that's why I did not cover that. But we have these two holidays, Cinco de Mayo and St. Patrick's Day. Now that we have drinking and we associate other cultures and we drink and we pretend like, oh, we're Irish, we'll we're Hispanic, we'll eat tacos and we'll eat green bagels and we'll pretend to be, and we're kind of mocking these other cultures, and it's kind of rude and it's kind of embarrassing. We're America. We came together as a blend of other cultures. We're still a young country. Ellis Island was, born, immigrants came through. America, for the longest time, really until the past recent years, took pride in being a cultural melting pot. I mean, I live in Los Angeles. We are a melting pot of immigrants. And to see holidays where we appropriate these other cultures, and it's kind of embarrassing, because we don't realize just how inane, how absurd we are treating these other cultures. And I just wish we are definitely doing it with Jesus, this Middle Eastern man, and turning him into a white man. We do it every day. We do it when we say, oh, I'm Irish, and not only that, think about what we're doing to ourselves as Americans. We are dismissing ourselves as Americans. We're dismissing our own culture. We need to create room for appreciating it. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is the first year where I'm not seeing. I'm a big sports fan. I saw jerseys like Los Lakers. They would put Los over the Lakers jersey. They were like the Los Angeles Lakers. Why would you put Los Lakers? It was like Los Angeles Lakers, it was Los Angeles Lakers, Los Lakers. What? It made no sense. And then you had these minor league teams that would come out. Like, you saw some teams change their name to the Chihuahuas, and it was just embarrassing. And I don't get this cultural appropriation that America has, and this fascination that we have with this embarrassment, especially as we are treating and these other cultures. The majority of you who are doing this, especially in 2021 are the ones who are chanting, build a wall, build a wall, build a wall. Then you're going, let's go drink beer and get drunk. Now you're doing it maskless in a bar. I mean, think about your hypocrisy. I mean, I know you're probably not going to be the ones watching this video, but it's kind of embarrassing, guys. I I have a lot of thoughts here, and it's kind of embarrassing. But cultural appropriation is very harmful to society, and we need to think about what we appreciate as a whole about society and get to the root of it. And I think it starts with appreciating ourselves as Americans first, and then moving on to, you know, how we can appreciate other cultures to begin with. And let's not dismiss anything to begin with. I hope I gave you a lot to think about here. Have a good day. Bye.